Welcome to the Secret History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. Motorcycles used by the German Army in 1941 represented a significant advance in ground mobility during the period. These vehicles were used to quickly transport soldiers, equipment, and messages, playing an essential role in strategic movements. In 1918, showing Lieutenant René Fonck on a train with his pet stork named Helena. René Fonck was a prominent French pilot during World War I and, after the conflict, became well known for his travels and public appearances. In 1910, showing a traditional strongman, a very popular figure in public shows in the early 20th century. These performers displayed feats of physical strength at fairs, circuses, and theaters, lifting weights, bending iron bars, or performing impressive demonstrations of endurance. Model Kitty Nolan in front of the famous Tropicana Hotel, located in Las Vegas during the 1940s. The Tropicana officially opened in 1947 and quickly became one of the city's main symbols, known for its elegant architecture and for attracting artists, visitors, and celebrities. In 1929, showing workers specialized in maintaining telephone lines, an essential profession for advancing communications in the early 20th century. Linemen climbed tall poles using safety belts and hand tools to fix cables that carried voice signals over long distances. In 1870, showing James Logan, a 20-year-old who was detained after being accused of taking a coat. As a consequence, he received a sentence of 1 month of hard labor, a common practice in the justice system at the time. In 1913, showing the boxing bout between Ray Campbell and Dick Hyland, two athletes who made their mark in early 20th century rings. Boxing matches of the time drew crowds and were closely covered by newspapers, which reported every detail of the fights. Margaret Ann Neve, born in May 1792 and passing in April 1903. Becoming one of the longest-lived people of her time. She lived in 3 different centuries, through the late 18th, all of the 19th, and the start of the 20th, making her life a rare witness to modern history. A piece of men's underwear known as long johns, completely frozen by the intense cold. The image was taken in the early 20th century, in a region with harsh winters, where extremely low temperatures stiffen fabrics and everyday objects. New York in 1940, showing the moment when a family happily presents the birth of triplets, something considered rare and surprising at the time. The scene drew attention because it shows both public curiosity and the advances in photographic records of everyday events. London around 1900, showing orphaned children living on the streets during the late Victorian era. During that period, the city faced stark social contrasts, with rapid urban growth and a large number of minors in situations of abandonment. Sig Smith performing a headstand on the top of a building more than 20 stories above the streets of New York. Known as a stunt and acrobatic performer, Smith was part of a generation that sought to capture public attention with daring demonstrations in unlikely places. In 1916, at the Polo Grounds in New York, showing the traditional game between Army and Navy, a classic of U.S. college football. The stadium, famous for hosting major sports events of the era, was the stage for one of the most striking chapters in the rivalry between the military academies. The Tide Letter, written in 1554 by the future Queen Elizabeth I, then a princess, to her sister Queen Mary I of England. The document got its name because it was written in haste as the tide rose, since Elizabeth knew she might be taken to the Tower of London on suspicion of involvement in a rebellion. Taken around the mid-20th century, showing a curious example of advertising, accompanied by the phrase, "Oh, what a difference a donor makes," humorously highlighting how small changes can transform the final result of a product or service. In 1942, at Pier 88 in New York, showing the SS Normandy after the fire that caused it to list and roll over while being converted to a troop ship. Originally launched in 1935, the Normandy was considered one of the most luxurious ocean liners in the world, a symbol of innovation and elegance in commercial shipping. In 1940, showing the collapse of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in Washington from above. Opened only a few months earlier, the bridge earned the nickname Galloping Gertie because of the undulating motion caused by strong winds that shook its structure. Raina Brewer McRae, working as a gymnast, bodybuilder, and also a stunt double for Marilyn Monroe in 1938. The photograph shows the athlete in the spotlight in an early phase of her career. The portrait highlights the versatility of a professional who made her mark in different areas of entertainment and sport. In 1946 by photographer Kurt Hutton for Picture Post magazine, showing a moment of electroconvulsive therapy being administered in a hospital in England. The treatment, first used in the 1930s, was introduced as a medical approach for certain psychiatric conditions. A Rodman cannon, used during the American Civil War. The weapon was considered one of the most impressive of its time, capable of launching projectiles of approximately 350 pounds to a distance of more than 5,000 yards. 20th century, showing youngsters using a sled on a steep hill long before extreme competitions later known as the X Games. The sled, made of wood and metal, was a favorite winter pastime in many cold regions, providing simple yet exciting fun. The sword of Pierre Gerloff's Donia, a Frisian leader of the 16th century. Known for his impressive stature and for leading popular uprisings in Friesland in the north of the Netherlands. The weapon measures about 2.13 meters, about 6 feet 11 inches, in length, which would already make it notable on its own, but reports indicate that Donia was even taller than his own sword, reaching almost 2.20 meters, about 7 feet 3 inches. The process of transporting a dinosaur fossil to the Boston Museum, an impressive technical and logistical challenge for the time. Moving such large bones required detailed planning, with specialized teams, reinforced wooden structures, and vehicles adapted to support the weight and size of the pieces. In 1955, showing a child getting their first haircut. A simple moment but full of meaning for many families. At that time, neighborhood barbershops were community gathering spots where adults and children shared memorable everyday experiences. In 1930, showing the so-called baby cages, metal structures attached to apartment windows in urban areas. These devices were created to provide fresh air and natural light to children living in buildings without easy access to yards or open spaces. In 1928, showing the Ipatiev House, located in the city of Yekaterinburg, Russia. The place had become known because, 10 years earlier, it was the scene of the end of the Romanov dynasty, the imperial family that had ruled the country since the 17th century. In 1917, in the Somme region of France, showing farm workers dedicated to field tasks during World War I. Even with the country engaged in intense fighting, agriculture remained essential to supply food to the population and to soldiers. In 1917, showing a young soldier next to his mother shortly before leaving for World War I, the scene symbolizes the mix of pride and sadness felt by thousands of families at that time, when sons left home to serve in a global conflict. In 1881, showing the passenger salon of the steamship City of Winnipeg, which sailed the Red River in North America. Steamboats were essential for transporting people and goods during the 19th century, linking riverside communities and strengthening regional trade. Okinawa in 1945, showing Colonel Francis Fenton conducting the funeral service for his son, Private Mike Fenton, 19 years old. The scene took place during the Pacific Campaign, one of the final chapters of World War II. Valtteri Bugatti, founder of the famous luxury car brand, next to one of his rare models. The vehicle shown belongs to a limited series of only 7 units produced, making it an extremely exclusive piece of automotive history. The Soviet Union during the 1940s, and it shows students preparing for exams in a simple study setting. The scene reflects the importance placed on education at the time, when schools and universities trained young people in many fields of knowledge. In 1941, showing the domestic shelter known as the Morrison, developed in the United Kingdom during World War II. It was designed to be installed inside homes and provided basic protection during emergencies. In 1949, showing the first official NASCAR race held in Charlotte, North Carolina. The event marked the beginning of an organization that would soon become one of the world's biggest motorsports competitions. In 1960, showing filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock on a sled ride with his grandchildren. Known worldwide for his landmark films, Hitchcock also appears in more intimate records that reveal his family-oriented, relaxed side. In 1944, depicting a defining moment of World War II, a year when many decisive events shaped the outcome of the conflict. It was during this period that the Allied forces carried out major operations in Europe, including the Normandy landings, which opened the way to liberating occupied countries. In 1923, showing the FA Cup final played at the newly opened Wembley Stadium in London, which went down in history as the White Final. The match between Bolton Wanderers and West Ham United drew an estimated crowd of 300,000 people, far above the official capacity of 125,000 seats. Sir Malcolm Campbell next to his car called Bluebird, with which he set a new world land speed record by reaching 301 miles per hour in 1935 in the United States. Campbell was already recognized as one of the greatest pioneers in motorsports, known for constantly pushing the limits of engineering and speed. In 1941, showing an armored soldier surrendering during World War II. One of the many episodes that marked the conflict, the scene portrays the moment when a fighter leaves his position and raises his hands before enemy forces. In the early 20th century, showing a father teaching his children to swim in a curious way, staying dry outside the water while holding the kids with the help of a support. The idea was to let them get used to swimming motions safely, without the risk of sinking. Paul Anderson, an American weightlifter and strongman widely recognized as one of the greatest names in the history of physical strength. Born in 1932, he won the gold medal at the 1956 Olympic Games and set several world records in weightlifting. In 1963, showing Howard Rogers, Polaroid's chief chemist, next to about 5,000 bottles used in his experiments to develop color film processes. Rogers was one of the key figures in research that turned instant photography, once limited to black and white, into high-quality color images. Remains of a Roman ship from the 1st century BC, discovered in 1980 in the city of Comacchio in northern Italy. The vessel was found in excellent condition, allowing archaeologists to study naval techniques of the era and details of life on board up close. In the early 20th century, showing a Ford Model T, one of the most iconic vehicles in history, which revolutionized transportation by becoming affordable to a large part of the population. Produced starting in 1908, the Model T popularized the use of automobiles in the United States and other countries, thanks to the assembly line production system developed by Henry Ford. Greenland during the 1890s, and shows an Inuit man warming his wife's feet in a moment of everyday care. The Inuit people live in Arctic regions and developed ways of life adapted to the extreme climate, using fur clothing and survival practices passed down from generation to generation. A stagecoach from the Lombardy region, used in the mid-1850s to travel from Turin to Genoa in about 25 hours. This kind of transport was essential before the expansion of railways, linking major cities and allowing the movement of people, goods, and information. In 1968, showing the onboard service offered by Scandinavian Airlines in economy class, where the traditional Nordic dish called smørrebrød was served. This kind of meal consisted of slices of bread, topped with different items like fish, cold cuts, and cheeses, representing the region's typical cuisine. National Cash Register, located in Dayton, Ohio, in the early 20th century. The company became known for producing cash registers that could add and record amounts quickly and conveniently, becoming essential for commerce at the time. Wycliffe, Chicago in 1931, showing spectators at Al Capone's trial, covering their faces with hats as they watched the scene. The case drew huge public attention and became one of the most talked about of the time, reflecting popular interest in famous figures and high-profile court proceedings. London around 1860, showing street musicians performing amid the city's bustle. At that time, outdoor performances were a common form of popular entertainment and also a way for artists to earn a living while bringing music to different neighborhoods. In 1925, showing actor Lon Chaney preparing his own makeup to play the lead in the film The Phantom of the Opera. Known as the Man of a Thousand Faces, Chaney became famous for creating and applying his own character makeup using innovative techniques that impressed audiences at the time. Player Bobby Charlton recovering in a hospital in 1958, a few days after a serious plane crash involving the Manchester United team. The incident occurred in Munich, Germany, when the team was returning from a European Cup match. In 1907, showing a boxing match held aboard the USS Oregon, a United States Navy battleship. Activities like this were common on military vessels, serving both as entertainment for the crew and as physical exercise during long voyages. The Nürburgring circuit during the 1960s, showing drivers Jackie Stewart and Graham Hill in a Formula One race when their cars briefly lifted off the ground while crossing steep, challenging sections of the track. Cuba in 1910, showing a group of cigar industry workers gathered for the camera, although it is sometimes shared with the humorous caption, "World Mustache Championship." The image actually depicts cigar makers in a moment of collective relaxation. In 1939 at the Hammond Raceway track, showing driver Ralph Fons being thrown from his car during a race. Despite the impact of the crash, he survived, which drew major attention at the time and was widely reported. This photo, taken in London in 1920, shows two boys boxing barefoot in a simple space, likely improvised in the neighborhood where they lived. Activities like this were common in urban communities of the time, when the sport was seen as recreation, discipline, and physical learning. In 1944 in the Marshall Islands, showing United States Marines exhausted after intense fighting that led to the capture of Inuit Atoll during World War II. The operation was part of the Pacific Campaign, when troops advanced across strategic islands to establish air and naval bases. Japan around 1880, showing a samurai from the Satsuma domain holding a traditional longbow known as a yumi. This kind of bow was an essential part of Japanese warrior culture, used both in battle and in ceremonial practices. In 1932, showing the workers who became famous in the image lunch atop a skyscraper, taken while they ate lunch on a suspended beam during the construction of a New York skyscraper. In this lesser-known version, they are lying down and resting on the same beam, taking a few minutes of break during the job. New York in the 1980s, showing a young Mike Tyson, then 18 years old, next to his trainer and mentor Cus D'Amato, moments before his first professional fight. D'Amato was a central figure in Tyson's life, offering not only technical guidance but also personal support in his development inside and outside the ring. In 1939 in the city of Harlingen, Texas, showing a typical hamburger stand of the time, reflecting the growth of fast food culture in the United States. During the 1930s, simple places like this became popular for offering practical and affordable meals amid the era's economic hardships. New York in the early 20th century, again showing construction workers having fun high up on a skyscraper under construction. As in the famous Lunch on the Beam image, these records reveal moments of relaxation during the intense routine of raising the buildings that shape the city's skyline. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please use the Super Thanks tool below. Your contribution helps us keep bringing you amazing historical content. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.